Hey Collide, it's Brandon, and today we're continuing to dive into a topic that might make some of us a little uneasy at first. It's change. Yes, that word can make us feel all types of ways, almost like a love-hate thing. Some of us love change, and it can be exciting, like a new haircut or a brand new school year. But have you ever experienced change you were honestly not too thrilled about? Like the haircut you got wasn't that good, or maybe you had a moment that your phone updated and everything looked different, like suddenly everything in your default settings and your apps were all mixed up. Change can be like that. Unexpected, uncomfortable, but sometimes necessary. So as I was thinking about some changes and some updates, here's where I need your help and your opinion, okay? I'm gonna give you some examples of change. And when I show you these changes, I want you to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you like or dislike the change. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Starting with the first one, this is a classic. We have original OG Mountain Dew versus Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Now, if you're me, that's an easy one. Baja Blast all day long. You can get it at Taco Bell any chance you can, okay? All right, next one, arguably the greatest sports jersey of all time. We got the old Toronto Raptors jersey versus the new Toronto Raptors jersey. All right, next one, girls, I need your help here. Do we like the old Stanley Cup that your grandparents have, or the new Stanley Cup that you have? Let's talk sneakers. What about the Air Max 90s throwback or the new Air Max 270s? Do you like a Google search or a ChatGPT search? Do we like the animated Lion King versus the live action Lion King? Do we like Michael Jordan's Space Jam or LeBron James' Space Jam? Here's one. The OG Fortnite map or the Season 6 Fortnite map from today. I'm staying out of that one. That one's on you. You can debate me later. Okay, I know these are just some fun examples, but if we're honest, for a lot of us, change is not always fun, especially if it's a change that feels forced or like you have no control over. Like when your parents say you're moving, or you have to change schools, or something big happens in your life that you're not so happy about. Change can be so hard. Trust me, I know. I had to move in 6th grade, which means I had to change schools. Do you know how wild that is for a 6th grader? I mean, you may as well have told me that I was moving to another planet. That's like Michael Jordan moving to Looney Tune World, or like the Grinch moving to Whoville. That's how unexpected and uncomfortable that change was. So when it comes to change, what does that mean as a follower of Jesus? We often hear about how Jesus changes lives, but is that really a good thing? If you've hung around church or church people, you might have heard words like renewal, rebirth, or how God makes all things new. There's this idea of becoming a new person in relation to faith, which I know can sound like a little creepy at first, but what does that really mean, especially in middle school? And is that change something you're actually interested in? To help us unpack that, we're gonna take a look at a passage of scripture from the book of Ephesians in the New Testament. So Ephesians is a letter written by a man named Paul, a leader in the early church. In this letter, Paul was writing to encourage Christians in Ephesus to shape their lives around the gospel story, a story about being made brand new in Jesus. He wrote about how following Jesus changes us for the better. So let's take a look at this passage Paul wrote in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22 to 24. Throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. Instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes. Put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. Paul encouraged these people following the way of Jesus to take off their old way of living, kind of like an old set of clothes, and to instead live in such a way that makes it easier for other people to see God through them and through others. See, Jesus invites us to change for the better. And Paul used this imagery of taking off and putting on as a way to understand the kind of change God can make in your life. Think about it like this. I love clothes and like putting together outfits. So when we talk about change, my brain immediately thinks of like changing clothes and like how quickly fashion trends can change. So if I want to get some new clothes, that means I got to get rid of some stuff that might be out of style. Here we have a whole rack of clothes that represent old ways of living. And when we start to allow God to change us, those old clothes get tossed to the side and new ways of living take their place. And when we wear these new clothes, our new way of living is also visible for all to see. Let's take anger, for example. We can toss this old way of living aside and replace it with forgiveness. What about hurtful words? We can toss this old way of living aside and put on encouragement. How can we use our words to encourage others? And finally, what about living far from God? We can replace this old way of living and put on living close to God. When we follow Jesus, it's an opportunity for God to make us brand new. We get to let go of the old stuff and start letting God change us. So even above your outfits, what in your life needs to change? Is there an attitude or behavior that needs to be changed or made new? Paul put it this way in his letter to the Ephesians. He said, "Instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes." When we follow Jesus, we pursue what Paul calls righteousness and holiness. This means we start acting more like Jesus. Following Jesus offers the best kind of life, the life that God created you to live, a life that looks more like forgiveness, using encouraging words, and living a life that's close to God. When we follow Jesus, it's like getting a fresh start, becoming a better version of ourselves. Jesus helps us renew our hearts and our minds, making us more like people we were meant to be. Jesus invites us to change for the better. As we grow closer to God, God's love shines through us. So when we hear Jesus talk about changing lives, it's not about being perfect or pretending to be somebody that we're not. No, it's about growing in love, compassion, and faith right now as middle schoolers who love and follow Jesus. Change can be a really good thing, especially when it's with Jesus, because Jesus invites us to change for the better. So as you head to small group, here's a question I want you to think about. What is one way you want to change to be more like Jesus?